Hello, my name's Dottie and I'm a positive psychologist and counsellor. And today I thought I'd talk to you about the science of hugs. So on the 21st of January each year, it's National Hugging Day. This day was designed by Kevin Zabuni and it started in 1986, so it's been going for a while, and it comes after Blue Monday. So Blue Monday is on the 18th of January and it's known for being the most depressing day of the year. So Kevin actually did really well popping a hugging day a few days after the most depressing day of the year, because I'm sure we could all do with a hug. And I'm going to start this little talk with a beautiful poem by Brittany Thomas, and it's called The Power of a Hug, and it goes something like this. It's the touch that gives you comfort. It's the touch that makes you feel. It's something that no one else can ever steal. It's the sweetest human contact for the body and the mind. It's the connection where two bodies link and bind. It's what we search for when we feel all alone. It can be so meaningful. The emotion is deep to the bone. It's what makes us realise that someone else is there. It's the touch that says, just know I'll always care. It can say hello, it can say goodbye. It can leap you out when you're happy, or it can make you want to cry. It can say I love you, or I'm really glad we're friends. It can be the last spark in a story that ends. All you need is another soul to make you feel this snug. It's the connection in our life. Everyone needs a hug. So I think that's really beautiful. And it made me think about the start of life and particularly newborn babies. I've been fortunate enough to work for Rainbow Trust, and I was entrusted to go into the neonatal department where there are very, very premature babies. And I've witnessed Kangaroo Care. So Kangaroo Care is when babies are taken from their incubators, just in a little tiny nappy, and they're placed on their parents' chest, skin to skin, heart to heart. And the science shows that this calms the baby and the parent. It encourages bonding. It encourages growth hormones. It releases feel-good chemicals such as oxytocin. And if the baby's popped onto the mummy's breast, it can actually encourage breastfeeding as well, because the smell of the milk can make the baby want to suckle. So it's very, very beautiful for the parents and indeed for the baby. And it's recognised as being really, really important. And sometimes parents are unable to visit their babies due to ill health themselves. And there's charities that actually go into the hospitals, and they're called professional cuddlers, and they actually go in and cuddle these beautiful little babies. So strong is the science. And this has been taken around the world now, and I believe that most neonatal departments encourage this kangaroo care. So it's so, so beautiful. So we go from the start of life to newborns to the end of life. And I've been really inspired to hear about hospices that have installed cuddle beds. So in Lancaster, at St John's Hospice, there was a charity appeal to install a cuddle bed. And a cuddle bed is very similar to a hospital bed. It's got all the capabilities of a hospital bed. It can tip, it can enable people, it can raise, it can lower it, so it's got all the functions of a normal hospital bed. However, it's larger, and it means that a family can snuggle up together. So parents and children can get onto a hospital bed together, and they can snuggle and they can cuddle. And of course, at the end of life, touch is just as important as at the beginning of life. Sometimes words are inadequate and we don't quite know what to say, but holding somebody and touching somebody can say sometimes so much more than words. So I'm really inspired to hear about these cuddle beds, and Josie Curtis was one of the first persons to use this cuddle bed with her husband Steve, and I found a little quote from Josie which I thought I'd share because it's so beautiful. And Josie says, "We were very, very privileged to be able to use a cuddle bed. This was so special to both of us, as it meant we could be close together when every moment of each day was so precious. It was much better than Steve lying on his own. And on Steve's passing, I was able to lie by his side and to hold him close." And I think, you know, that kind of says everything that we need to know about cuddle beds and the importance of them and the importance of touch and hugs, and how important celebrating this special hug day is. And so I've started with the beginning of life, and then I've gone on to the end of life, and I thought I'd talk about all that in between, relationships and social connection, and how important touch is in these moments of, you know, relationships and life. So I'm thinking about Dr. Gary Chapman's book, and his book is called The 5 Love Languages, and he talks about physical touch as being one of these languages and why it's so important. It's a really, really great book if anybody is in a relationship or is thinking of getting into a relationship, because it does talk about love languages and how we see love between couples. And Chrissia Silver is a behavioural psychiatrist, and her little quote says, "Physical touch, specifically cuddling, releases oxytocin, the feel-good hormone that makes you feel like nothing can hurt you." And that's you know, we were talking about newborns and we were talking about end of life, and actually the power of hugs and that emotion of not feeling hurt is so important to our well-being. And in David Snarch's book, The Passionate Marriage, he talks about what a passionate marriage is and how one goes about maintaining it or having it. And one of his chapters is called Hugging Until Relaxed. And he talks about how important touch is, hugging is, cuddling is, and not about leading to sex, but just leading to that emotional intimacy that we all. So we've been talking about social connection, bonding, growth hormones, and so do hugs really work? I suppose is the question. And science says yes, it does. When we hug ourselves, that gentle pressure stimulates the body. So it stimulates the sternum, the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that connects our brain, the whole of our body, is also stimulated. So by doing this and hugging ourselves, we're stimulating our whole body, which means that our feel-good hormones are being released, hormones such as serotonin. When I've worked with people and they're very depressed and they're very stressed and they're very low, often I will find that organically they will sit and they will hug themselves. They will hug their knees, they will sit and bend and hug their knees, they will crouch in and they will start to self-soothe. Often I've seen that they are stroking themselves. And of course this is all helping slow down our parasympathetic nervous system. We're self-nurturing, we're self-soothing. So yes, hugs are shown to really help us calm in stressful situations. And actually in Carnegie Mellon University, there was a research project that they wanted to see if people that were exposed to the common cold, whether having regular hugs made any difference. And actually the research showed that hugging actually showed that they were less likely to develop the cold after being exposed to the virus. So that's really, really interesting research, and makes me feel that actually, yes, hugs are really, really important. And then I think about mental health, and when I was reading about hugs, I found oodles of research articles or articles in the paper that said a hug saved my life. And I found people that were saying that they were about to commit suicide, and there was a lady called Marlene Wilkinson, and she's from New South Wales, and she said that a stranger stopped when she was about to commit suicide. She was about to jump off a bridge, and a gentleman called Gwen Jones stopped and said, "Can I have a hug?" And that hug saved her life. And I've read lots of papers, and in fact, one day one of my clients was prepared to commit suicide, and she decided to come to my home, and she said, "Can I have a hug?" And actually, this is the time then when we talk about when boundaries are crossed in counselling, and of course I gave her a hug, and thankfully she didn't commit suicide. And then I've heard of Emma Meyer. So Emma Meyer is a student from the University of Central Lancashire. And she gave a friend a hug, and as she hugged him, she felt something on his back, and she encouraged him to go to the doctors and to have this lump on his back looked at. And James Carplow, who was a gentleman, was found to have cancer. It was a rare form of cancer, and I'm pleased to say that he is doing really, really well now, and they're in a relationship. So that was a really lovely story to read about. And there's lots of stories about the power of hugs. So yes, hugs are important. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say hugs are important. And so what about if we've got nobody to hug us? What do we do then? Because we know that hugs are important. So we can learn to self-hug. There are lots of YouTube tutorials in yoga or meditation tutorials on self-love and hugs. And we know that whether somebody else hugs us or whether we are hugging ourselves, we are stimulating our nervous system. So I encourage you to have a look at some meditations and some yoga tutorials. I will place a beautiful tutorial by Daphne Barth, who has done a Hugsana, I think she's called it, and it is a yoga tutorial on how to hug yourself. So that's maybe number one. Number one is looking at yoga tutorials on how to hug yourself. Number two, I would suggest looking at meditations, and there's plenty out there. So meditations on self-love and hugs. Number three, what would I suggest? I'd suggest maybe talking to friends about hugs and how it feels. So even if you can't see them in these COVID times, talking with friends about how it feels to have a hug. The World Health Organization has actually said that we shouldn't be hugging unless it's with somebody from our immediate family that is living with us. So these alternatives are really, really important. So what was I? Number one, number two, number three, talking to friends and family about hugs. Number four, maybe looking at pictures of when you've been hugged as a child, as an adult, with friends. Maybe purchase a cuddle blanket or make a weighted cuddle blanket. They're beautiful as well. what about getting out into nature and hugging a tree? There is so much research around hugging a tree, and in Iceland, the forestry commissions have actually cleared the snow so that there is access to trees, so people can actually hug a tree because they feel so strongly about the research in hugging a tree. And I'm going to tell you about, who am I going to tell you about? I'm going to tell you about Matthew Silverstone. He wrote a book called Blinded by Science, and he believes that trees release vibrational properties which can strengthen and calm our systems. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually did that. I actually went out into nature and I found the most beautiful tree and I hugged it. And yes, I felt really, really silly. However, as I left the tree, I thanked the tree and I laughed and smiled all the way home. So whether it works or whether it doesn't work, it felt bloomin' great. So yes, I encourage you to hug a tree. And there's in Iceland, there's one of the rangers even suggests how to hug a tree. So I'm going to read that to you because it's so cute. It's good to close your eyes while hugging a tree. I press my cheek against it and feel the warmth and currents flowing from the tree into me. It starts in your toes, runs up your legs and through your body into your brain. You get such a good relaxing feeling that you're ready for a new day and new challenges. And that was by Bergen Arna Thornsten Dottie, a senior ranger at the National Forest in East Iceland. I do apologise if I say the name incorrectly. I tried. So yes, hugging a tree is really important. Now I've lost my numbers. I can't remember what number we were on. But another idea would be to look at pets. So Petz therapy has been around for a very long time. In fact, it was originally founded in 1983 by Leslie Scott Ordish, and she believed that hugging an animal, hugging a pet, would help combat loneliness and aid in rehabilitation. And they've actually got, that charity actually has now over 6,000 volunteers that go into hospitals and to care homes and take their pets so that patients can hug an animal. Isn't that beautiful? That's so beautiful. And even horses have got in on the act. There's a beautiful video about a horse called Peyo, and he visits hospitals and he goes into the wards and he goes in to see the patients and he snuggles into these patients. And if you get a chance, I would really advise finding that video and watching it, because the interaction between the horse Peyo and the humans is so incredible. And if you don't believe in hugs then, you will after watching this video. So I'm going to end with a beautiful poem, and I'm going to send you a hug from me to you, and it's called The Simple Hug. And it goes like this. There's something in a simple hug that always warms the heart. It welcomes us back home and makes it easier to part. A hug's a way to share the joy and sad times we go through, or just a way for friends to say they like you 'cause you're you. Hugs are meant for anyone from whom we really care, from your grandma to your neighbour or a cuddly teddy bear. A hug is an amazing thing. It's just the perfect way to show the love we're feeling but can't find the words to say. It's funny how a little hug makes everyone feel good. In every place and language, it's always understood. And hugs don't need equipment, special batteries or parts. Just open up your arms and open up your hearts. And I'm going to finish with sharing my little pussycat called Bubbles. And we're sending you a hug from us to you. Keep safe, lots of love from me and Bubbles. Bye bye, and thank you so much for watching. Keep safe. Bye bye.